Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what is its response to comments from the Auditor General that it underspent its budget by £2 billion in the financial year 2021-22.
Deputy First Minister.
President Officer, the Scottish Government annual accounts provide explanations of all significant variances in the portfolio outturn statements and make clear that the underspend reported does not represent a loss of spending power. The underspend includes over £900 million of non-cash and ring-fence budgets, is before allowing late funding adjustments of over £500 million and makes use of the limited carry forward in the Scotland Reserve. The Scottish Government has reported transparently on the carry forward position at the provisional outturn and will confirm the final outturn position to Parliament shortly. All funding is fully utilised in supporting the 2022-23 budget.
Murdo Fraser.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his response. This Scottish Government is always telling us it doesn't have enough money to spend, despite the fact that we know that in the current financial year it has the highest budget ever in the history of devolution. And now we know, of course, from the Auditor General that it underspent last year's budget by £2 billion. So what is the carry forward to this year's budget from that underspend? And how much of that money that was not spent last year represents funds that came from the UK Government for COVID support, which was not spent on COVID support, but was siphoned off elsewhere?
Deputy First Minister.
First of all, can I just make clear to Mr Fraser, and I thought my original answer had done so, but I'll say it again, just to try to make sure that I can make an impact on his presentation of all of this. But £900 million of the underspend reported by the Auditor General relates to non-cash and ring-fence budgets that the Government cannot spend on other items. It's in relation to annually managed expenditure, which is the control of the UK Government, and student loan support, which can only be used for student loan support on a demand basis, and we can't redirect it to anywhere else. So these are basic points, really basic points about the public finances that I would have thought Mr Fraser might have understood the length of time he's been in this institution. Now, we assumed when the budget was passed in the spring of a £450 million carry forward into this financial year. That had risen to £550 million by March. And I assure Mr Fraser that the underspend reported does not represent a loss of spending power in any respect by the Scottish Government.
Murdo Fraser.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I noticed the Deputy First Minister did not address the question of COVID support funds being siphoned off elsewhere. But last week, the Auditor General also called for greater financial transparency from the Scottish Government and for them to fulfil their commitment to produce a consolidated account for the whole public sector in Scotland. Will the Scottish Government be fulfilling that commitment, and if so, when?
Deputy First Minister.
In relation to the issue on COVID spending, the Government has spent in excess of the COVID consequentials that have been allocated to us. One of the comments of the Auditor General that Mr Fraser did not cite was this comment from the Auditor General, and I quote, "My independent opinion is unqualified. This means, in my opinion, I am content the Scottish Government consolidated accounts show a true and fair view following accounting standards and that the income and expenditure for the year is lawful." I would have thought that would have been quite a reassurance to Mr Fraser as a law-abiding citizen, of the confidence that not for the first time the Government's accounts have attracted an unqualified opinion. We have an unqualified opinion for our accounts for every single year the SNP Government has been in office. That's a source of great reassurance to Mr Fraser. And in relation to the point on transparency, the Auditor General also said that the Government has continued to strengthen aspects of its governance arrangements during 2021-22, and we will of course consider all the recommendations from the Auditor General as we take forward our accounting practices.
As